on tight, spider monkey.
As if you could outrun me!
It's more than some crush, Bella.
How? I don't even know what you're saying. How?
It's one that I hope you enjoy disappointment.
Yes. Okay, well, was this the third episode in a row we've had to do over?
Yeah, this is not a good habit to get into, but...
Yeah. All right, so we're here in...
Rockefeller Plaza, Studio 180.
Nope.
That
my
is
apartment.
not correct.
All right, we're back. Welcome to my Twilight Fantasy episode 10, where we go over chapter 10.
Interrogations.
I thought that was... No. Yep, you're right. Interrogations.
You have them all memorized?
No, but I always get 10 and 11 mixed up.
Yeah, because they should be one chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, yeah. Welcome back to my Twilight Fantasy, where we discuss all things Twilight.
Whoop.
And you've got three of the biggest Twilight fans right here coming at you.
Live. Not live.
Who are you guys?
I'm T. Drizzy, also known as Tyree.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Anna.
I like how you get closer to the mic when you introduce yourself, because although it's not actually bass boosted, it has that same, like, blurring effect.
Yeah.
I think that's really funny.
I'll just stay back here from now on.
Oh, you're fine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to roast you.
You think it's funny and it blasts people's speakers out in their cars.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what happens?
I don't know. They could.
I haven't listened to this podcast in my car ever.
I don't think I've
listened
tried.
to it at work. We're crazy people, and sometimes, I'll be honest, we listen to our own podcast at work.
I think it's not a bad thing. I think it gives us a good time to, like, reflect and grow.
I agree with that.
And then
but
ask
when
why
we're
I sound like
laughing
that.
at the jokes that we have made,
We're
and
funny.
agreeing with our own points.
No, I know. We make me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right, but...
I mean, we're great. I don't know what else to say. Just something light for y'all.
We're funny. Deal with it, people. Just kidding.
Someone leaves a negative comment. You're not that funny.
Not even 2,000 followers, and you're getting really big heads over there.
Hey, I think... I'm going to go check now, but I think we might hit it and then, like, during this recording.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, but you guys have to let me know when you guys do your follow thing so I can go back and do my...
We can talk about that more later.
Yeah.
We're 19 away from 2,000.
Wow.
Oh.
I think we're going to hit it while we're here.
If I post a
2019.
really spicy meme tomorrow, maybe it just might shoot us over the edge.
Oh my gosh. 13 years ago today
Their wedding anniversary.
was Bella and Edward's wedding.
Happy anniversary.
I was going to
Let's
say
start
something.
it forever.
I was going to say something about the Avatar. He's like 13 years ago. The four nations used to live together in harmony.
No.
Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Please don't.
I'll stop. I'm not going to get
She
into
has
that.
the whole intro memorized, though, just so you know.
If you also have the whole intro memorized, hit us up at our email.
If you ever waste one of my expo markers on that intro again, you're fired.
That was a whole year ago.
I know, and I'm still not over it.
All right. Can we talk about Twilight?
Yeah.
Wait, so you're over Jeff banging your markers on the board, but you're not over me?
Well, no. I don't like any disrespect towards my... not Sharpie. Sorry, I erased
Avatar
my
is
first.
not disrespect. That's the ultimate respect. Okay, well, we can continue,
I'm
though.
moving on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight you.
Like always, we'll just handle it later.
Anyway, let's get into this chapter. I'll start on the overview. Also, have I already apologized this recording for Bodhi?
No, you have not.
I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. We're at my apartment. You know, still a work in progress, but my dog never shuts up, so sorry.
He's a good guy, though.
Yeah, he's the best dog. He hates not being with us, but he just requires so much attention that he can't be with us while recording. So anyway, here we go. So we're into chapter 10, which is called Interrogations. I'm going to start off with an overview and then we'll get into it, okay?
All right.
Okay, so we start off the chapter the morning after Bella's revelation that she's in love with Edward.
Okay,
After, like, a
one
month.
small thing to interject.
Yeah.
when she wakes up, she drinks milk straight from the carton, and you can tell by the way she talks about it on page 196 that that's really badass for her. That's, like, edgy for her.
Oh, man, I hate that. I hate that.
And of all things like milk, you can get, like, some juice.
Too spicy.
Okay, so... Yeah, she's in love with Edward, and she's cool because she drinks milk from the carton. Anyway, so she's really anxious to see him at school, but she's surprised when he shows up to her house to give her a ride. And once they're at school, everyone's shocked to see this new couple. And, you know, because Edward can read minds, he starts to warn Bella that Jessica plans to attack her, basically, in trig to get answers out of her about what's going on between the two of them. And they decide that the easiest explanation is that they're secretly dating.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the lamest way ever to ask someone to be your girlfriend.
Bro, and
Totally.
the way he went about it was also very lame. He was like, well, it'll be the easiest thing to explain, so you could just say that we're dating. I'm like...
So are we dating?
Right. I'm like, are you going to ask? Because I don't remember agreeing, even though we know Bella's BA would be like, yes.
Yeah. I didn't realize at first that they were DTRing, like, right there. You know?
I mean, they kind of aren't, but that was the note that I made. Was like...
DTR? Defining the relationship.
Oh. I was thinking, down to what? Down to read?
That's the most Bella acronym ever.
Oh, boy.
Down to read.
He says... Goodness, this is... She wants to know if we're secretly dating, and she wants to know how you feel about me, he finally said. And then she says, yikes, what should I say? And he says, I suppose you could say yes to the first if you don't mind. It's easier than any other explanation. And she said, I don't mind, in a faint voice. Can you just be normal for a second and just say something normal, like,
Yeah.
are we dating or are we not dating?
Right, and I thought her inner monologue, she'd be like low-key, like, tweaking.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of is. But also, like, stop being so, like, dazzled by this person. And also, like, they still don't really know each other that well.
T.
Yep.
But anyway, we'll get into that later. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, you're fine. So, yeah, they decide to tell whoever that they're secretly dating. And he basically warns Bella that he's going to be eavesdropping on all of her conversations via reading the mind of the person she's talking to.
Is this the weirdest flex of all time?
Is this too much?
So Edward then overhears some of the conversation and is unhappy to hear that Bella believes she cares more about him than he does about her.
And he gets
Edward,
cheesed.
he gets cheesed and assures her otherwise. And they go off to lunch together and they discuss a bunch of more vampire quirks and stupid stuff like that. So, is that a good overview?
Yeah.
Stupid stuff like that. And we good?
All right, we've already started to dig in, but should we? Can I start with a positive?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that this is probably, part of Stephanie Meyer's attempt to show that Edward is dated. But, like, examples on page 197 showing, like, what a gentleman he is.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I know you probably don't.
No, I appreciate that aspect, but my note says it should always be a choice. Like, he says, do you want to ride with me today? He asked, amused by my expression as he caught me by surprise yet again. There was uncertainty in his voice. He was really giving me a choice. I was free to refuse, and part of him hoped for that. It was a vain hope. Okay, it should always be a choice when
I
he's
think
asking.
that's mostly in Bella's mind, though.
Yeah, 100%, but it just freaks me out that she thinks that she can't say no to him, especially after that whole thing many chapters ago where he kind of, like, forced a ride home on her after the fainting thing on, like, blood types or whatever. Like, that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But anyway, I hear what you're saying.
No, I get that. But I just like her not portraying him as like super forceful and weird for a second. It's like he actually likes this girl and he's doing something to show that he cares about her, at least, you know, in a somewhat normal way. Yes, Tyree?
I was going to comment on, you know, when they're, like, talking, I think it's on the way to school, and he talks about how, like, irritating it is that he can't, like, read her mind, and, or that Bella won't tell him what she's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But then before, he got pissed off that she thought that she wasn't normal because he couldn't read her mind, but now he's, like, ultra pissed off that he won't tell her what she's thinking, and I'm just like... I'm sort of just thrown. I don't know. I'm sorry to, like, backtrack like that, but I was just like...
I think they kind of address it a tiny bit, like a really small bit, in a future chapter. I forget exactly where it is, but at one point Bella says that she's kind of afraid of him, not because she thinks he's gonna drink her blood or whatever, but because of his temper,
Mm-hmm.
and because of these mood swings that he has, and he kind of just laughs it off and moves on, as far as I could tell, but maybe it changes for the better. I don't know. That's just, like, part of his personality is, like, he's Bella except a temper, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In my imagination, at least.
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe in that way, that's why they're meant for each other.
I mean, yeah.
Do you have anything else for the beginning of the chapter? I have something if you guys don't.
Mm-hmm.
On page 198, Bella describes a feeling that, like, I've had before, and it's one genuine feeling that I feel actually connected to Bella for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so on 198, let me pull it back out. Yeah.
Out of pocket.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
So this is after Edward has picked Bella up and they're heading to school, and it's the morning after. I mean, he's basically admitted to everything. He's a vampire. He's always, you know, he thirsts for her, but they're basically in love and whatever.
Well, are they in love? Like, does he reciprocate?
Probably.
I mean, neither of them has said it out loud yet.
Mm-hmm.
But Bella's determined that she's in love with him, and all things point to Edward loves Bella.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's after this, like, huge moment of vulnerability for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever had that with someone before, but when you have this, like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get too deep.
No, do it.
But, like, you know, when either there's been something, like an obstacle in the way with a relationship with somebody, or I don't know, but it just comes to a point where you have, like, one night of just total honesty and everything comes out and it's just really weird, but there's something really therapeutic about it. And then the next morning you're with that person again, but you don't know
How to move on
from that, because it's like, are we still going to address the fact that we talked about these things, or do we just keep going on as if nothing happened?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I don't know. I felt like that was a very genuine feeling from Bella, and we don't usually get those things.
Yeah, I kind of wish that she described it like you just did, because I like that. That's so much more relatable to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just what I took from it. But
yeah.
She says, like, you know, last night all the walls were down, almost all. I don't know if we were still being as candid today. It left me tongue-tied, and I waited for him to speak.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. I just, you know, aside from her fits and mood swings and stuff, that's one of the, like, very few times that I've been like, I get you, girl.
Yeah, once in a while she says something where I'm like, okay, that is relatable right there.
Yeah. So, I like
Tyree's over there like, Absolutely not. Vulnerability, I don't know her.
Yep.
I
Never
don't
get to
either,
that point
but,
for me.
it'll sneak up on you.
Oh, yeah.
I won't let it.
You'll be surprised.
That Bugs Bunny meme where he's like,
No.
I just remembered that is preheated.
Do you
Should
want me
I
to
do
pause
that?
it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, okay. We gotta make cookies real quick. BRB. Okay, we're back. Cookies are done. It
Hell
smells dank. They're cooling, and we are now refocused until we eat them. But yeah, I think I was just discussing that, moment of uncertainty that Bella was having after having their conversation the night before and all of that. But before going off that serious note into something a little lighter, on, I think, the next page, let me look what I wrote down. No, page 203. This is just me whining, really. How in the hell do you turn wow into a 3-syllable word without spelling it out?
Ooh, ooh. I don't know. I don't.
Did that bother anyone else?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I definitely, when I was reading, I had to stop there and think about that for a long time.
Yeah, because it's literally the quote on page 203, kind of at the top. It says, in quotes, W-O-W. Basically, wow. She exaggerated the word into 3 syllables.
If you can figure out how that sounds in your head,
Yeah.
please take a video of yourself performing the 3-syllable wow and send it to us, mytwilightfantasypodcast@gmail.com.
Was this before whoa was a thing?
Wow.
I know, but, was this before, whoa? Whoa, oh, whoa. But,
No.
I don't know.
Whoa and wow. Those are kind of different words, but not really. That's so
Not
weird. I've
really,
never
but
thought
I
about that
just...
before.
That really threw me because I had to read it a couple times because I'm like, I don't think I can say wow in 3 syllables.
Wow.
Wow.
Like that Vine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. So, anyway.
Very
was
confused
just
about that myself.
Huh?
Very confused about that.
Yeah.
A
Also,
little bit
do you
lower.
want to see if
on
I
the
can get
page.
a nice crack?
Oh.
That sounded crisp.
Nut.
All right.
Sorry. I thought we said
Maya.
family friendly.
I'm allergic to nuts. Sorry.
Oh boy.
That's just a game plan. Alright.
Another grievance. Later on that page, Bella kind of, throughout this whole conversation she's having with Jessica, she knows that Edward is listening, and so she's saying certain things to give Edward, kind of manipulating Jessica's thoughts to get a certain message across to Edward, which is
Slimy.
it's kind of slimy, yeah. In the same way that it was slimy of her to flirt with Jacob to get information about the vampire myth, you know? So that's, we always talk about how Bella has no friends, but the reason she has no friends is because she uses people like this as a means to an end to, get something across or to know something more about Edward all the time.
Also, she's just a bad friend.
Yeah.
Because going off of that, on page, I marked page 205, but even where you were saying page 2 or 3, she sees Bella, who's supposed to be one of her best friends now, come in with Edward Cullen, the big mysterious guy in the grade, and wants to know what's going on. And, she asks, what do you and Edward talk about? And Bella just says, I don't know, Jess, lots of stuff. That just seems like a really shitty...
Yeah.
I know she's trying not to be too specific because of the situation, but I just feel like she...
Could have went about it better.
Yeah. Definitely.
Always.
Or, spin it to focus on the non-vampire things they've talked about.
Yeah.
But in reality, Edward knows so much about Bella from firing these questions off at her, but Bella doesn't know anything about Edward's, like, personal life. Mm-hmm. And that really bothers me, because when it's her turn to ask questions, which is a weird thing to say, but that's how they've organized it. They take turns. On certain days, they fire off questions at each other. Bella just asks about vampire stuff, but Edward wants to know everything about her whole history, everything she's interested in, her whole family, what life was like in Arizona, stuff like that. And so he really knows her, but she still thinks that the Hale siblings are actually related to Edward, you know?
Yeah.
Like, she still doesn't have that
She
straight.
has no idea. Yeah. Well, just one more example of Bella being a bad friend. On page 205, at the bottom there, since she was trying to get, Jessica off the subject of Edward, between classes, she says that she tells Jessica about what Mike said, how Mike told Bella about the date she had with Jessica and how he had a really good time and blah, blah, blah. And so, I can't say I haven't done this, but, like, she says, we spent the rest of the walk dissecting sentence structures and the description of Mike's facial expressions.
Yeah.
Like, I've done that, Girls, we read
too.
into everything.
Yeah. And it's, like, for fun.
Yeah. I mean, because it ultimately does mean something, usually. But, so, like, Jessica has clearly been into Mike up to this point, and this is the first time that Mike has shown interest in Jessica over Bella.
Yeah.
And so I think Jessica's trying to, like,
flex
a little bit. But also she's, like, genuinely excited and trying to, like, get her friend to engage with her.
Yeah.
But Bella says, and I think this is super shitty, but she admits that she wouldn't have entertained this that long if she wasn't worried about Edward coming up in the conversation.
Yeah, I really didn't like that either, but it kind of reminded me of a friend I had in high school.
Really?
Yeah. That's a shitty thing to say, but...
I mean, we all know people who are shitty, so...
And I enjoyed it, but it was just the way that we were.
Wait, she, like, would dissect things, or...
Or she would, like, go off, like, in extreme detail about, like, her person that she was interested in at that time, and it was just kind of like, fuck whatever I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is, I look back and think fond things about that.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, in that way, I'm sort of, like, I don't want to say I relate to Bella as far as just, like, but I don't, like, well, she says the only reason, like, she's entertaining something for, like, that long, because about, like, Edward and stuff like that, but, like, I don't know, it's, like, if I don't want to talk to someone, or if I'm, like, or it's, like, if they want to, like, talk about something that I'm comfortable with, that they know I'm, like, uncomfortable with, I'll, like, just switch the conversation, so, I don't have to talk about it. Or, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, if I don't want you to, like, entertain what I'm doing, I'll talk about something that you really like, so you don't, like, talk about, like, well, like, not that, like, this isn't part of my issue, but it's just, like, you're trying to, like, get, like, deeper in what I'm doing, or, like, what you want to know what I'm doing, I'm like, you like this, right? And then they'll start talking about it, and so I'm just, like, so it's, like, deflecting so you don't, like, learn anything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's because you're an Aquarius.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I don't know. Because, I think it's safe to say that we're selfish beings by nature. Mm-hmm. We're most interested in what's going on with us. And not talking about ourselves, I'm not saying that it's hard, but, like, we're most engaged when we're talking about ourselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think most people put an effort into, like, suppressing that instinct in ourselves and showing interest in others. Mm-hmm. And I think what Bella's doing here is she would be into talking about herself if she weren't trying to hide the secret. Like, she's not trying to put any effort into actually being a friend to Jessica here, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense.
And that I think that's what ultimately bothers me.
Yes, and
because
that is bad.
I've had friends who have boyfriends I hate, or even friends I can't stand, but I still listen to everything they say because it's obviously important enough for them to talk about, and they obviously need to work through something. But Bella's just like, nah, fuck that. I don't need this shit.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not a girl's girl.
Not at all.
And not that it's a bad thing to not be a good girl's girl, but she's not a people person.
Exactly.
Let me say it that way.
That's what I was going to say. Like, she's not...
Fuck, Tyree.
Sorry.
Was it this episode we talked about her sneeze or the first recording?
No, that was what got us off on the tangent, I think.
God damn it, Tyree.
I'm sorry.
She sneezed. So we tried to record this episode initially, and she sneezed, and we started talking about things we shouldn't talk about on a recording.
Yeah.
But basically,
That's why we started over.
I hate Tyree's sneeze.
I'm sorry.
And I know you can't help it, but stop.
I could try to put some more bass in it, but it'll probably just...
You did a couple weeks ago.
I know, but that was like, I didn't know that was about to happen. It was just like...
You were in the other room, and Paul and I literally looked at each other, and we're like...
When?
And he goes, she can do it normal. I was like, damn it, Tyree.
It happens sometimes, but like most of the time it's just like back up, like it's like rising up, like up here. But that time it was like so sudden, it was just like chew instead of chew.
It's not... You, like, scream a little bit.
I try not to.
A
It's just
little
like,
bit. You high key scream.
I don't scream.
Yes, you do, Tyree. It literally, no matter where you are at work, it stops me in my tracks because it scares the shit out of me. Like, literally, my heart's like, ugh.
My heart's like, ugh.
Every time.
I think I have a high Tyree tolerance.
I could like sneeze in my chest and you won't hear it, but it hurts.
Don't do
Then
that.
it hurts.
Two types of people.
I'm kidding.
It's okay. No.
Fix it.
I'll try. I'll practice my sneeze at home. I'll go back to like how I did at CCA when I had to control my sneezes so I didn't get a deduction for excessive noise.
Yikes.
Yeah.
What's CCA?
It's the middle school that I used to go to. Like we used to get like paychecks at the end of every week, and like you get like $100. But if you were like if you did something the teacher didn't like, they give you a deduction and it would be like -$2.
Oh.
And then if your paycheck was below 70, then you had detention and stuff like that. But like excessive noise, that was a deduction. If your elbow wasn't straight when you raised your hand, that was a deduction. It was like pretty
That's wild.
Yeah, if you didn't like say good morning to the teacher, you got a deduction. It was out of pocket.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Like and then like
Sounds like a nunnery.
yeah, it was crazy. Like and then we had homework checks at the beginning of every morning, and if you didn't have your homework like done in the homework check, you got a deduction and you got a detention. So it was like,
Why?
I don't know, it was just out of pocket. But then like I sneezed I kept sneezing like really high pitched like I was, and they were just like, they kept handing me deductions to the point where my paycheck was under 70 and I got a detention. And I was just like, I don't know what you want me to do. They were like, that sneeze is way too excessive. So I just started sneezing internally. So had like chest pains every day. It was lit.
I try to suppress my sneezes at work. Because I sneeze really loud too, but it's more bass heavy.
Mm-hmm. True.
True.
I feel like that'd be fun to hear.
No, it's like a basic sneeze, just like loud. My dad's is wild too, but at work I do it just like, but it hurts. But I'm saying I do it, so
Toughen up. Put on your big girl panties. Well, fine. I'll sneeze regularly from now
I'm
on.
just kidding. It just scares me.
It's fine. I got it.
All right, should we pause since Maya's in the bathroom and the cookies are probably ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. We're back and we're stuffed full of cookies and currently still eating more.
We're always eating.
Yeah. Oh.
Listen to my Twilight fanny. This is my breakfast buffet fantasy.
Yeah, this is just gonna become a mukbang podcast.
I heard I was doing like, what? And then I was like, oh, never mind.
I have another list.
Okay.
So, as we've established in previous episodes, I kind of, after just their first interactions, I was leaning heavily toward Team Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on their first. Like, at the beach, it seemed like that was way more easygoing and, like, natural than everything that Bella had been doing with Edward. But I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to sway back toward Team Edward. Yes. But
Go ahead.
I made a note of every time something felt a little bit off to me in the relationship in this chapter. I almost said in this episode. So on page 217, let me flip. On page 217, which is the end of the chapter, let's see. She says at one point that she gets really lost in him. But maybe I'm a little bit too cynical. Maybe that's natural. Like, if you're starting to fall in love with someone, whatever, you feel like you're getting lost in them. But that's just not... For Bella, it seems a little bit more literal. Like, she actively denies aspects of her own personality and, like, ways that she has expressed that she is for the benefit of Edward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
So, like, at one point, I think it's in this chapter, she's talking to Mike, and he's kind of expressing his disapproval of, like...
That's the next chapter.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. I'll get there when I get there.
I have a lot to say about that.
Right, I do too. Let's see. On 213, which we've already said, I think, Bella has started to make a note of every time he doesn't, like, force something, because the trend so far has been that he is really pushy and, like, doesn't make things seem optional at all. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Yeah, so she says, the weather will be nice, so I'll be staying out of the public eye, and you can stay with me if you'd like to. And again, he was leaving the choice up to me. That's like middle top of 213. So I don't know. That just kind of speaks for itself. I feel like maybe I'm just being too cynical, but that's how it came across to me the first time I read it. And then on page 211, this felt like a little bit of foreshadowing to me.
I made the same note.
Okay, yeah. So they're talking about, like, they kind of are having, like, a little bit of mood swings here. I forget exactly what they're talking about. Like, I think they're talking about hunting, right?
Yeah.
About Edward going hunting, and Bella's like, oh, can I see? And he's like, no, definitely not. And she's like, why? And he says, because I want to keep you safe. And then she kind of is glad that he can't read her mind, because she's thinking, like, oh, I could do something dangerous to, like, keep his attention. And obviously, everyone listening to this probably has some experience with Twilight before, and you would know that in New Moon, she does a bunch of dangerous stuff to try to get his attention again. So...
yeah, because she literally says, I could purposely put myself in danger to keep him close.
That is extremely destructive.
Completely. But that's exactly what she does in New Moon, like you said.
Yeah. So
I'm so Jacob.
There's quite a bit of foreshadowing, I feel like, in this book. I'm not like 100% convinced that Stephanie Meyer had this all planned out when she wrote the first book.
I'm not either.
But if she did, the foreshadowing is spicy, to say the least.
Real spicy. Yeah, totally.
I don't want to jump too far ahead because, like, the time that we're under right now, but there's in the car when he's talking to her and, like, telling her that she needs to tell Charlie that, like, he's gonna be with her,
right?
And then she's just like, well, why? And then he's like, I need some a small incentive to bring her back. I was just like, okay, I understand that they're, like, because I said they're semi-official now since he did that little declaration maybe decoration in the hallway, but
I wish there was something more, like, even a little bit more of Bella's thoughts there other than her being, like, excited by that. What does that mean? Are they together now?
I don't know.
Like, I just feel like Stephenie Meyer took a lot of really small situations to extremes, and then the really big reveals were just nothing.
Yeah.
Oh my
Him
God,
being a
yes.
vampire, them actually becoming a couple, like...
As if you could outrun me.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey. Prepare to be disappointed.
Yikes.
All that.
But I mean, those were just so insignificant. And for literally everything else, they'll have severe mood swings that are just like out of nowhere.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you didn't finish your thought about the...
Sorry, yeah.
No, it was just me saying that they're not close enough to be, like, for him to be even considering running away with her.
Well, I think he might have been considering, what if he was so, like, the only thing that is insurance for him to, like, have to bring her back to her family and her life is that someone knows that it was him who would have killed her. Mm-hmm. Because he's, like, still so on the edge of, like, all it would take is one bite for me to end this girl's life, and she smells so good or whatever.
And so that didn't send off, like alerts in her head?
I mean, it definitely sent off alerts in my head.
Yeah. No, Bella doesn't care. Oh. Should I answer on the podcast?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
You're on the podcast.
Nope. Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Oh.
Bye, babies.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
She's like, nope.
Aw, that was cute.
Poor Mama. Sorry. Anyway.
That was great. I'm glad we didn't pause for that.
Me either.
Yeah. But also I had another thing that I didn't really make any conclusions about. I just wanted to pose for discussion. Edward has said this before, but I want to talk about it again. Okay. On page 210, he says, you don't see yourself very clearly, you know. I'll admit you're dead on about the bad things. He chuckled blackly, but you didn't hear what every human male in the school was thinking on your first day. Yeah. I blinked, astonished. I don't believe it. I mumbled to myself. Trust me this once. You're the opposite of ordinary. Okay.
How?
Please. How?
I literally noted that, and then I said, insert eye roll.
Yeah, because
none of it makes sense.
The way she describes herself is very ordinary. There's not this, like, duality between her perception of herself and her actual appearance. I know that's difficult. It's kind of like an unreliable narrator sort of situation where you can't trust Bella's analysis of herself because everything is through her eyes, and I get that, but no part of her personality, she's not super intelligent, she's not super good looking, she's not really remarkable in any way that I can discern after having been in her head for 210 pages.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not understanding what we're supposed to make of that.
That was my last note too. I wrote, I agree with Edward that she doesn't see herself clearly, but in the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
Are you joking?
Tyree took a sip of her milk, and now she's joking and laughing. Way to go for not spitting that out. You the real MVP for that one.
Do you feel me, though?
Hmm?
You feel me, though? Yeah.
I thought it was like... Because I felt that so hard. It was just all at once.
Like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, bitch, you don't see yourself clearly. But, like, she sees herself as, like, almost this damsel in distress, but she's still tough and... Like, she thought she could fight people off, but the world's out to get her, and, like...
She's just problematic, and she
she's
just doesn't
horrible.
know.
She's horrible. There's no charm. There's no...
Allure.
Right. And I want to
nothing.
get, like, if you are listening and you kind of have, like, an alternative perspective to this, please...
Yeah.
Like, let us
hit
know.
us up, because... I'm really struggling with this.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something more here, and I'm just not seeing it.
Because I would really like to root for Bella and Edward.
Yeah.
And I do. Like, I'm Team Edward. And I was telling you guys earlier, like, because I can't read Bella's inner monologue in the movies, I like movie Bella way better.
Yeah, because you don't get any of this confusing, disappointing nonsense.
I don't. And, like, even though the way that Kristen Stewart plays Bella is weird sometimes and confusing and uncomfortable, it's
not
way
like
better
this.
than her just bitching.
Yeah, that's...
My milk.
I think if Kristen Stewart were to have portrayed Bella in a more accurate way, like with all the mood swings and the, like, kind of lack of self-awareness, like thinking that she is way more tough than she is, or thinking that khaki pleated skirts are a good idea, etc.
Yeah.
That would
Horrible.
be a totally different character.
It would be totally different.
And I think a lot of people who fell in love with Twilight fell in love with that version of Bella from the movies, which is way more, like, blank.
Muted.
And muted, yes.
Yeah.
And you can assume that better things are going on in her head. Like, more reasonable things are going on in her head
Yeah,
than what actually
totally.
are. So, there's that.
Yeah, not a Bella fan. But yeah, like Maya said, truly, if you have a different perspective of Bella, we'd really like to hear it, because we don't like to be super negative. We know we are sometimes, but she's just a really hard person to like, in my opinion. So, if you can spread some light on that. What?
I think she's toxic.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the book is low key, besides Carlisle.
Well, that's something else that Maya and I were talking about yesterday. Just briefly, I think. But it's just like, this is such a different time. Like, I don't think this book would be as widely accepted now as it was back in 2005.
Yeah, definitely not.
Like, the dynamic of the relationships would just be frowned upon. And her not thinking for herself, feeling for herself, allowing her feelings to be dictated by other people constantly would not be supported. You know, I just think it would have been a really different situation, but I think because we all grew up with it and we've just accepted it for what it is and we love it still, everyone's just allowed it to be. But now that we're actually deep diving into it, we're like,
yeah,
yikes.
Sometime I'm gonna have to explain to you guys like why I'm like so hard Team Jacob compared to Team Edward, but like,
Well, we're gonna have to have a whole like debate episode. I'll take you down.
I mean, you can, but like mine is more like from an emotional standpoint, though.
Same. I love Edward.
You are Bella.
Glares
am
and growls
Bella.
at me.
But now, the more we read this, the more offended I am when people compare me to her.
I don't think you're like Bella.
Thank you.
I think you're like Alice.
Okay, I'll take it.
That's picking up.
Oh,
Everything that you're doing over there picks up.
Yeah.
I'm
The,
sorry.
like, sliding of the paper on the carpet. It's fine.
Dragging your keys along the carpet.
moving the desk to get more cookies.
Yeah.
Anything
What
else on
I
this
had
chapter?
A few notes. Have we already talked about the, like, biblical analogies of this?
I think that, again, will just have to be its own episode.
Okay,
Because there's so many allegories throughout this entire series.
There are.
Did we say the thing that we liked? Oh no, if you're gonna say something, you can go ahead and say it. But
No,
I was
no.
gonna.
I was just saying something in response to what Maya said.
Well, you do your response, then I'll say something.
I was done.
Oh, alright. My bad. But, like, you know how we always do, like, one thing that we like in the chapter?
Well, yeah, are we ready to get to that point?
I want to make two more things. Just want to say really quickly. On
Okay.
page 198.
Uh-huh. Did you say 198?
Yeah. Let's see. Bella is described as doing something coldly. Let's see. Okay, so she says, "Do my questions bother you?" I asked, relieved. He says, Not as much as your reactions do. He looked like he was joking, but I couldn't be sure. I frowned. She says, do I react badly? He says, no, that's the problem. You take everything so coolly. It's unnatural. It makes me wonder what you're really thinking. And that, for some reason, sparked to me. I've been looking, as we're reading, for, like, hints as to why people, like, why the characters have the powers that they do, or whatever. And it kind of seems at times like Bella is destined to become a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, aspects of herself
Yeah.
are...
Doesn't she say that
Maybe, I don't know.
in Breaking Down Part 1?
I don't remember.
I guess I can
two.
see how taking everything so coolly could possibly be a foreshadowing for her as a shield.
Yeah.
Just having no reaction to whatever's thrown at her,
Yeah.
you know?
Possibly. So
That's
that
a
was
good
just something I
point.
wanted to think about
Yeah.
and just, like, maybe look out for those things in future chapters. Because I really, like... I don't think I ever finished reading Breaking Dawn when I was, like, the first time that I read these books.
Really?
I don't think so, because I can't really remember. But I remember when I was watching the movies for the first time, I was kind of, like, thinking, why was she a shield? Like, what does that... Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And so that's, like, another thing I've been super interested in this whole time is, like, obviously stuff that Edward and Bella actually have in common, like what makes their relationship work, what makes it not work, and, like, what about these people, what translates into having these powers, because it just seems so random.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's all I think I have. And then also, actually, for this whole chapter, I was really curious what Edward's point of view was for everything, and so I just wanted to bring up on the podcast, like when we're actually recording, what should we do about Midnight Sun?
Yeah.
Do we want to read that?
I think, yeah, we definitely want to read it. It's just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you guys could reach out to us, and we'll post something the day this goes on Instagram, so
Yeah.
look out for that. But reach out to us either on Instagram or our email, mytwilightfantasypodcast@gmail.com, or on My Twilight Fantasy Podcast on Insta. Let us know how you think we should go about Midnight Sun. Should we, I don't know, read it concurrently? I mean, we're already so deep
Yeah.
into this. Should we read it after Twilight? Should we read it at the end of the series?
Mm-hmm.
Once we get, like, a full scope of the story? You guys tell us how you'd like to hear this, because we're really open to whatever. But we are all very interested in Edward's point of view.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's tempting for me to just, like, go sit on my laptop and read that whole thing.
I know.
Right
I really want to, too. I also can't wait to read this.
Yeah, I posted on Instagram, like, last week or maybe 2 weeks ago that I found Life and Death, like, at Barnes & Noble,
Mm-hmm.
which is, quote-unquote, Twilight Reimagined, and that's just, like, basically all the chapter names are the same as the ones in Twilight, except kind of everyone's gender is reversed and things are a little bit different. The dynamics are a little bit different as far as I can understand. I haven't read any of it at all because I work 8 out of the 7 days every week.
Yeah.
But Anna is, like, fiending for more Twilight, so I brought this here to the podcast so that she could read more of it.
Yeah.
And this is another question, like, do we read this as a group? Like, when do we talk about that? But we can get there when we get there.
I only have, like, 2 free hours a week, and I
Right.
spend it just speed reading Twilight.
Right.
So...
Classic.
All right. So let's get to the things we like about this chapter. So why don't you go ahead and start, Tyree?
The only thing that I said was just, like, Edward seems a little bit more willing to open up.
Mm-hmm.
As far as him saying, like, well, do you really want to go to, like, Seattle? I could just take you with me and I could show you what I do in the sun. Glitter, sparkle, shine. And, like, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't want to say he was, like, sort of upfront with, like, what he was saying, because he was sort of, like, sly about it and, like, we should be, like, tell her that we're dating. So it's, like, so we're putting, like, it was sort of him, like, sort of setting his place, but, like, not fully committing to it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But it was like he was still trying to, like, open up, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
like
agree.
that too.
My favorite thing about this chapter is that I can finally start to see, like, genuine, not scary, not awkward, regular dynamic
Yeah.
interactions between these two, and I'm kind of into it.
Totally. Yeah, my favorite thing was the thing I touched on a little more in detail earlier, was just that one actual connection I felt to Bella about feeling she was having about just everything that is going on with Edward.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever, like, related to Bella.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? So, well, I think that brings us to the end of this chapter.
Whoop.
Woo woo.
Whoop whoop. All right. So, yeah. So yeah, that's chapter 10. I just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
think
fine.
what you meant to say was peace.
Oh, well, social media.
Oh.
Yeah. We've been having lots and lots of love on our social media, but always we love hearing from you guys. You guys have been interacting with us more, and we love talking to you guys about Twilight. So really, any questions you have, or, you know, like we said earlier, if there's something you like about Bella, tell us. Reach out to us any way you can. My Twilight Fantasy on Insta. Email us at mytwilightfantasypodcast on Gmail. Tyree, what's her Twitter?
I think it's just my Twilight podcast.
My Twilight Podcast.
Mm-hmm. Let me double check.
But we're also now on Tumblr, on Reddit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I made a post on Reddit that was
Okay.
like trying to kind of advertise our podcast to people in that community, but it did not get any traction whatsoever, unfortunately.
That's fine. We'll keep working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, start reaching out to us, or keep reaching out to us on those places. But one thing that could hugely help us is, we know you guys are listening on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. But if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, one thing that would really help us to grow and promote our podcast is if you left us a 5-star rating in a review, or really just any rating. It would really mean a lot to us. And if you were to do that, we'll give you a shout out on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Because we really, really appreciate you guys, and we want to keep doing this for you. So, anything else?
Thank you guys. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, peace.
Love.
In Twilight.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.